Hey everybody, welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast. It is, what is it? Thursday, May 12th.
Thursday, yeah. Yep.
Glad to be with everybody. Um, give everyone a chance to join in here, of course.
Ooh.
See who our first commenters are. And I'm going to go share.
Mark.
Oh, Mark. Hey, Mark.
What's up, man?
I'm going to go share this with our Guardian Nation members group.
Connor, there you go. The usual suspects.
Yeah.
Hope you guys are doing good. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so if I'm not, Riley's going to have to carry it like he normally does, but if I'm not as talkative, maybe then.
Yeah. And we didn't have any podcast episodes last week, so apologies for that, guys. I was sick, pretty sick last week. I had influenza, and it was not fun. Do not recommend. But man, I've been sick a bunch this winter with all kinds of I haven't had COVID since last year sometime, whenever that was, but I've had the influenza now and some couple of random cold things, and yeah. Graybeard is phoning in today. Oh yeah. Sorry, you say Graybeard, and my mind goes to Matt Little.
Of not
Graybeard
just a
actual
dude with a gray
It
beard.
took me a second there. I'm like, what do you mean he's phoning in? Like, am I supposed to be patching him in via the phone here? Speaking of being sick or having a cold, I'm still I feel great actually. So that everybody knows I feel great. But I do have this lingering cough, so I'll definitely be muting myself throughout the episode today as I need to try to not blow anybody's eardrums out. And so last week, actually, I'm going to end up mentioning this in the episode itself because we want our folks that only listen to the audio to get the same report. So I'll just touch on it here momentarily. We got a few of you watching now. Let's go ahead and begin with the recorded portion of the audio part of the podcast. If this is your first time, well, this is the way this goes. We kick these off. We record these podcast episodes live. This just happens to be a secondary benefit of pushing it out there in video form to YouTube and other sources like Facebook. But our primary focus is producing a podcast. So that's where most of our listeners actually get the podcast, is via podcast apps, listening apps. So we're going to go ahead and begin that recording now in 3, 2, 1. This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 6, Episode 9. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network, brought to you by Mountain Man Medical. Today is Thursday, May 12th, 2022, as of the recording of this episode. And I am your humble host, Riley Bowman, joined today by our amazing producer of the podcast, Matthew Maruster.
I don't know who that is, but I know who I am. But yeah, glad to be back, and after taking a week off, and we're back at it.
Yeah, yep. Took a week off. Speaking of which, as I was doing the intro there, as I was saying, this is the Concealed Carry Podcast. I actually had a hard time getting some of those words out super clearly because I felt this little twinge in my throat pop up all of a sudden. I am getting over not so fun bout with influenza A. Went through our whole family here, and was not fun. I was just pretty sick last week. Mostly super fatigued. I just did not have it in me to get out in front of you fine folks and do the podcast, and I just don't think Jacob and Matthew were able to, on their end alone, get everything pulled together for the show. At the very least, I think they were kind of, initially it was sort of a day-by-day thing. Like Wednesday, I was like, guys, I can't do it today. Okay, let's try tomorrow. and then the next day was worse, and anyway, so it just didn't happen. So I apologize we missed you last week on the podcast. Matthew, unfortunately, is a little bit under the weather today, but he is being a trooper and is still doing the show with me. So appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, but you carry the show. I just chime in every now and again. So, I'm not as important.
You do the behind the scenes stuff, and you provide added important perspective to, especially with an episode like this one. Today is Justified Saves. So we got a bunch of great DGU type stories. That's what we call them, as Justified Save stories. And if you're not familiar with DGU, I guess I should define that too. That's defensive gun use. We've got a bunch of them today here that we will discuss, break down, share with you our analysis, what lessons can be learned from them. And Matthew always has fine things to say about these stories. So don't you sell yourself short there, buddy. Today's episode sponsored, brought to you by CCW Safe. CCW Safe is our preferred choice for concealed carry, self-defense type. It's not an insurance product per se, but it works kind of like that. This is, and the reason why I might refer to it as insurance is because it's that fallback plan that you can rely on to cover you for legal related expenses associated with defending yourself in some kind of use of force case. CCW Safe, valid for any, okay, like any weapon used. Doesn't have to be a gun. Doesn't have to be concealed carry related. Doesn't have to be anything like that. Any legal weapon. It protects you from, using your weapon in the case of a home invasion, an armed robbery, a carjacking, et cetera, where you got to use force to defend you, your family, your loved ones, the people you care about, and their lives. Provided that you've done your part, that you've researched the laws, that you're within the law with your use of force, then you'll have a strong case. And CCW Safe will be there with their legal team, their expertise to back you up. You can even choose your own attorney. They will consult with you on that if need be, provide input on an attorney that you select, or they will recommend one for you. But not only that, they have a legal team of their own that will be there to back you up and provide additional resources, oftentimes behind the scenes. So I encourage people to always go research the Stephen Maddox case. We interviewed Stephen on the podcast as well, and listen to it's like the little things that I think really make companies like CCW Safe stand out, Matthew, where they spent time one-on-one. CCW Safe did with Stephen Maddox behind the scenes, prepping him, working with him, providing him additional support above and beyond his actual hired legal team. And every cost associated with that trial was covered by CCW Safe. What it cost him, he already had his life impacted, had his job impacted, his income impacted, okay, to a large extent. Many of those things were fortunate to get resolved as well with CCW Safe's help, but without them covering the legal side of things, he would have been absolutely and utterly ruined. I'm thankful that I'm covered by CCW Safe. Check them out, ccwsafe.com. Use the coupon code or discount code. Coupon doesn't really sound right, but you're going to save 10% by using the discount code CC Podcast for podcast listeners. And for Guardian Nation members of ours, you'll save 20% by using your code that's available in the members area when you log into the website. We thank CCW Safe for sponsoring the podcast. Also, today's episode sponsored by the 2022 Guardian Conference in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, September 16th through the 18th. You've probably heard us talk about it a fair number of times here on the podcast. We are selling tickets, and we need to sell tickets. Now, ticket sales are going great, by the way. But, without people being there, it's kind of hard to put on a world-class 3-day training event. That's kind of the point, is having people there to train. So we're marching forward and selling tickets and seats in that event. We'd love to hit our goals for that. We'd love to see I'll tell you straight up, we had about 80 some odd people there last year. We'd love to hit at least 120 this next year. That's kind of what we're shooting for, just to give you an idea. It's going to be bigger, better than ever. We'll have 3 days of world-class training with some amazing folks. I did want to mention one of our sponsors of the conference, same as last year, and they're back this year as a sponsor, is EDC Belt Company, makers of the Foundation Belt. They made a kind of a limited edition belt color. It was actually like red, white, and blue, like the American flag. It was pretty cool. They made that special for conference attendees last year and had them available for sale there at a great price. They also sold a bunch of belts at a little bit of a discount too throughout the whole weekend. EDC Belt Company's Foundation Belt is my belt of choice for concealed carry. It is, I think it's the finest belt for the purpose on the planet. So we appreciate EDC Belt Company sponsoring the Guardian Conference 2022. And also, hey, you'll know I'm wearing the 2021 Guardian Conference t-shirt here. So there'll be another cool, unique design special event t-shirt that we'll give every conference attendee this year. So you'll want to be there. Plus a bag of swag and a bunch of other great things and opportunities to win prizes throughout the whole weekend. We hope to see you there, and we hope to see you getting some awesome training. Go to guardianconference.com, sign up today. And also, if you want to learn more about EDC Belt Company, go to edcbeltco.com, edcbeltco.com. Well, guys, let's talk about our Justified Safe stories. Matthew, I'm going to hand it off to you for our first one here. Our lead story comes to us out of the New Orleans area of Louisiana. It says here, this is the title or the headline: would-be carjacker shot by intended victim in Bywater, New Orleans, police say. And the byline, 17-year-old hospitalized with a neck wound. So tell us, how did this go down there?
Yeah, so this happened, the date was April 15th, so not too long ago. But so around 7 p.m. In the 500 block of Louisa Street, not sure where that is. If you live in New Orleans, you might know. Apparently not a very good neighborhood. There's been plenty of carjackings, as this news report says, in that area. But anyways, around 7:08 p.m., a person gets out of their vehicle. Another vehicle driven by a suspect and a passenger in the vehicle backs up down the road and kind of makes contact with this guy who just exited his vehicle. Passenger gets out, points a gun at the dude, demands his keys. We covered plenty of these carjacking type stories, so nothing kind of new here, except what the victim does is he throws his keys. It says he tossed his keys and kind of used that as an opportunity to get distance and get behind some cover. As he did that, he also drew out his firearm that he had on him. And apparently from this report, as the one of the suspects got the keys and was at this the victim's vehicle attempting, I guess, to get in and take the car, the victim said he saw the suspect point a gun at him. He fires one shot and takes off and runs to his house. And both of the suspects jump in the vehicle. They take off. They actually pick up the story says they pick up another person. Not sure exactly where this person was. Was he a lookout? We're not sure. But there were three people in the vehicle, head up to the hospital. They're both, two of the kids are 17-year-olds. They admit to, committing the armed carjacking. And like Riley, you said, had a gunshot wound to the neck. Looks like he's going to survive. So I'll hand it back over to you, and you can kind of analyze what he did, and good things and bad things and all that.
Yeah, this is a great story because I think this man did a lot of things right. But I do want to start by talking about how, with respect to times that people are ambushed, okay,
Mm-hmm.
in various forms of attacks or robberies, carjackings, okay, this type of thing is this type of situation plays out typically because of either an armed robbery, hey, give me your stuff, or they want to take your car, or both, right? parking and exiting your vehicle is a prime time for a criminal to ambush you. So it's always one of those things we got to be watchful of and for. I try to make a habit that, obviously before I pull into a place, park, my driveway or whatever, anything like that. Even your garage, because certainly, because you might think, well, I pull in my garage and everything's fine. Well, I've seen attacks where they manage to hide in a bush or hide around a corner, and without you noticing, right before you get the garage door closed, they sneak in and that kind of thing. So stuff happens, but it's a prime opportunity for an ambush because you don't have as clear of sight lines when you're inside a vehicle. You've got some obstructions. You got headrests of seats. You got pillars and different blind spots of your vehicle, so on and so forth. So the first thing is always try to be alert and attentive and observant as you are parking or coming into a particular area where you're going to park. Try to look out for things, and then I don't try to make it a habit of immediately shutting off the car and jump out. Like, stop, pause, check your mirrors, check around you, see if anybody's emerged suddenly that you missed somehow. Is there waiting for that moment that you maybe are distracted as you exit the vehicle? And so, check, all around you and check your mirrors, shut off the vehicle at that point. Because at that point, I'm still leaving the vehicle running, right? Because if I can simply throw it back and drive and take off, when somebody comes out apparent, to or where it's apparent that they're trying to ambush me, well, let's just get out of there, right? So anyway, when I'm satisfied everything's good, shut off the vehicle, check the mirrors one more time, unlock the door, get out, so on and so forth, right? So I just want to kind of hit on that. That's a good procedural sort of thing that you all want to consider for yourselves, and kind of how you go about navigating your life your own way with your vehicle. It's interesting. They pointed a gun at him. They did manage to ambush him. This did occur at night, if I recall. Where was that at? 7:08 p.m. was when the call came into police. Anyway, so it's kind of in the evening hours. Probably still a little bit, twilight-ish, daylight. I don't know what it's like at 7 p.m. but in New Orleans right now, because this was just a week or two ago. But they demanded his keys, and I like that he flung his keys at them. And as he did so, he then took cover under a nearby car and pulled out his pistol. Like that's a pretty clever thing to do, right? Okay, here's my keys. And while they're momentarily focused on keys incoming, let's catch keys, grab keys, whatever, you're taking steps to get off the X, get out of there, and get to a place of cover, or get inside, or get to wherever you can get to that offers you some measure of security and safety, and draw out your own pistol, which is what this man did, which is great. And it said that he saw the teen by his vehicle at this point, still pointing a gun at him. So this is still a lethal threat, right? And so at that point, he fires the gunshot. I think, could he maybe have noticed that he was about to be ambushed a little bit sooner? Maybe, so that's why I talked about that, but sometimes we're not going to see everything. Sometimes we're still going to make mistakes, et cetera, et cetera. But in this case, I think this guy played this out really, really well. I think he showed reluctance in using force. I think he waited, until, he had cover, and there was still a lethal threat presented in his direction in the form of a gun. And then he opened fire, and he did hit his target. It says he fired one shot. That one shot struck his target. That individual was hospitalized, seriously injured. And and I think that everybody ended up getting arrested. So bravo, 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 all the way around. The one thing that's interesting at the bottom of this article is it says how in this area, it references the 500 through 900 blocks of Louisa Street, This is like one of the busiest parts of town for attempted carjackings. Specifically, it says vehicles stolen at gunpoint. So yeah, probably don't want to be there or live there anymore if you can help it. At the very least, I think this guy probably was somewhat aware of that. He's carrying a gun, and he was able and prepared to use it. Good on him.
Yeah. It's one of those things. And Connor made a couple comments while you were talking about him and his wife have been talking about these transitional spaces and how to navigate in gas stations and ATMs and parking lots and things. And that's exactly right. Like, this is where your attention is divided and you're not really paying attention to who's around you. And people know that. And, you're grabbing grocery bags or getting your kid out or putting them in and all that. And people know that. So, I was carjacked as a youngster, and it's something that, like, I've always, it impacted me and impacts the way I look at being in a vehicle and all that to this day. So I think that these lessons are universal, even though that that every instances are going to be unique, right? But like, we can do some things that we can that can give us a better heads up and maybe avoid being in a position of real disadvantage.
Yeah. Yep. Good thoughts, man. Let's go now to our next story. Is from KARE11.com. This is from the Minneapolis, Minnesota area, southern Minneapolis specifically. And it says, video shows backyard shooting of intruder ruled self-defense. I'm actually going to go ahead and share this one for those of you that are participating with or able to participate with us via video, because this video is pretty telling. Go ahead and start rolling it here. It's got an ad, so I should have started rolling already, but I'll chat about it really quick. Basically, we have a mother. She's 53 years old, and her son, I can't remember what his age is, but he's an adult son. Oh, hey,
now
26 years old.
That led prosecutors to say the shooting was valid self-defense. Lou joins us.
Is that audio coming through?
Story.
Yes.
Julie and Randy,
Excellent.
This happened in February on a cold 6-degree night in South Minneapolis, in a neighborhood that's seen an increase in armed robberies. And the whole thing was caught on tape. Now, we warn you, some may find the content disturbing.
So they have some nice exterior
After
video.
checking the locked gate, surveillance video outside the South Minneapolis home shows Martin Lee Johnson hopping the fence.
That's intent
A motion light turns on
to
as
do
Johnson
something.
approaches the home.
Obviously.
According to police reports, the homeowner, a 53-year-old woman, heard Johnson wiggle the door handle and his steps on the deck. So she told her 26-year-old son, who lives with her, and grabbed her handgun as Johnson entered the family's detached garage. The homeowner opened the sliding door and fired warning shots in the air. On the surveillance video, you can hear the homeowner's son's voice as he joins her in yelling at the intruder. But instead of hopping back over the fence, Johnson walks toward them. And after 2 more warning shots, the fatal shot is fired by the son, who was standing next to his mother inside the open door, also holding a gun.
My clients were acting completely in self-defense.
Joe Tamburini.
All right, I'm going to stop it there because we don't need to hear everything from their attorney. He obviously is going to say, they're innocent and so on and so forth.
I hope so.
That's his job. But one thing that's kind of cool is this is a local attorney, and he is representing them pro bono. And it's been ruled self-defense. So they have actually, so it doesn't appear they're being charged with anything, but he stepped in as an attorney proactively, which is always a good thing, right? As soon as you're involved in some kind of incident like this, you want to be on the phone with, in my case, CCW Safe. Yo, CCW Safe, need help. It was just in an incident. Call their emergency line. I'm going to get help right away, and get connected with their response team that they have specifically for that purpose. But all right, we saw the news story. You got the details, so I don't need to rehash it. But what we saw there was numerous warning shots fired. And I'm not going to explain where I got the information. I'm not into, like putting people's, private info out there and stuff, playing that whole, what's it called?
Doxing.
Yeah, doxing game. There we go. Just drawing a blank here. But I was able to dig up the exact location where this occurred because I was curious. I'm like, we're firing warning shots. Some of them appear to be kind of up in the air, and some appear to be kind of more in the general direction of that individual that was shot, but maybe not exactly at him. And so I was like, well, where are those rounds going? And apparently there weren't any charges, for like reckless endangerment or, anything that might be dinging them as far as on the less than prudent use of that gun or guns, because there were two in this case. Both the mom and the son each had one. I'll say this is in South Minneapolis, and where they live, there is no safe directions. All right, so I just thought I'd throw that out there. All right, that's just something to think about and consider. There is no way you're launching those rounds as warning shots, especially anywhere other than the ground that would be considered safe to do so. So I'm a little bit appalled at their lack of understanding of the danger of those warning shots to others, and also a little bit appalled that there doesn't seem to be a little, like I know somebody out there's gonna be like, well, Riley, like these are good people and they're just trying to defend themselves and no harm, no foul, so all is well. Like, why you got to come down hard on them? Why you got to hope that they get hit with something? Well, there's consequences for actions, and sometimes consequences are necessary for other people to take notice and be like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't do that thing. Warning shots are not a good idea. We've talked about it before. We've talked about it so many times. Don't need to rehash it out in great detail now. It's very obvious, especially like even sending a warning shot into the ground has the potential for danger. Has potential for danger for you. You might catch frag from that, right? And injure yourself. Or you might still injure the other party, okay, from that. And if you're in this like weird area where you're like, oh, I'm not sure I'm justified to shoot them, but I'm going to shoot the ground as a warning shot and it fragments and injures them. Well, you basically just still shot them, so there's that problem. And launching rounds into the air, well, what goes up comes down. That's not a good idea. So I am really, I'm thankful that these folks survived this encounter. We don't know what this guy was intent on doing, but he obviously jumped their fence. He attempted to come into their home. He went into their garage. He came back out. And after being shot at and yelled at and told to not come any closer, he started coming towards them. So I am not questioning the fact that this was self-defense. I think tactically there's some other things that could be touched on, such as they could have remained in a secured, locked home and placed a 911 call. But you know what? They're also legally allowed to do what they did as far as open the door and say, hey, get out of here. And that individual made the choice to come at them even while they were armed and made their intentions clear that they were willing to fire shots. So this is a pretty interesting story, and it's good because we get some really good video evidence from it, which means that we're not just relying on something that we're reading in an article. We can see and judge it for ourselves. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from this one.
Yeah, I'll only add, I'm not going to rehash what you said because it's all spot on, and we've covered it, so many times. In general, I think this is one of those stories that, like, just because they weren't charged and just because the outcome was favorable,
right,
isn't a story that you want to emulate. You know what I mean? Like, So this is one of those things where people are like, well, I know this one guy and he cranked off 15, warning shots in downtown or, suburban Minneapolis, and nobody got harmed, and he opened his door and yelled and shot a guy from his door out in his backyard, and he wasn't charged. And so, but let's not use this as the prototype of how tactically we should respond to a situation like this, because, God forbid, imagine being the person who said, well, I was legally justified in shooting this guy who was in my backyard. And we don't know what he would have done, and we don't. But like, imagine you're the person who cranked off 5 warning shots before that, and you also injured or killed or harmed somebody, who is completely innocent, right? Like,
which has happened. Children have been killed from actions like that,
right? And it's like, so then, like, maybe you're not charged for that, maybe, but your conscience, right? Like, knowing, like, well, maybe I could, that door lock seemed to work. He jiggled the door lock. He wasn't able to open the door. It seemed to work. Did I have to escalate this? And I'm not saying that they did. I'm not saying they escalated this and they didn't have the right. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, you're going to go through all these emotions and thoughts and things. And I'm just saying, let's not use this case as, let's learn from this, and sort of not a what not to do, but kind of, we could do better. Right. Like, and so I don't know, that's kind of where I'm coming from with this story.
100%. That's exactly my thought. Is it's like, well, the end result of this, well, I mean, I don't know if it always feels kind of strange to say, it was a positive result, when somebody got shot and killed here, which this attempted intruder did. But, I mean, they did what they felt they needed to. And I think as far as the actual shot that was fired at and struck the individual here was probably, pretty solid in the self-defense realm. If somebody else got hurt in the course of their actions here, that it would have completely negated, nullified any other positive result from this incident.
I know, Pete, it sounds like I'm defending the criminal. I can't help it if that's how you take it. That's certainly not what I'm saying at all. I also am defending the potential of a child being shot, like a neighbor shooting, warning shots and a round going through a window and killing an innocent kid who's sitting there minding their own business. I'm not defending a bad guy. I'm not saying these people are bad guys or good guys or anything. I'm just trying to point out some things that we can learn from this story and maybe not replicate it.
Yeah, we are not defending criminal actors or criminal actions in this whatsoever. We are not condoning unsafe practices and poor tactics in the form of sending off who knows where warning shots. Okay. Mr. Fix-It on YouTube says, but why do we live in a society where we defend the bad guys? He was there to cause problems. Shouldn't that be all that matters as far as he's concerned? Fair questions. But I'm not trying to defend bad guys here. I'm trying to defend the law. I mean, we have laws here, and I know that we don't always agree with every law. But I do feel like in most jurisdictions, in most states, and most statutes with respect to self-defense law is pretty reasonable, is a very reasonable approach. And so I think the law here is worth defending. And I think that by firing warning shots, there's a potential for endangering other people's lives. And that is not okay. Okay. This is not a criminal issue. This is just not a good idea to do. Anyway. And I see that you clarified you don't believe in warning shots either. Well, that's all we're trying to say here, Mr. Fix-It. All we're trying to say here. Okay. And maybe you're referring to some of my words like, let's not, it's weird to say it's a positive outcome that bad guy gets shot and dies. man. I don't want anybody to have to die. I don't. That's part of, I think, of being a decent human being. But I also don't have a problem with bad people dying that essentially choose that course of action.
Mm-hmm.
That's on them, not on me. Okay.
Yeah.
And he says, I know y'all aren't defending him, but most laws and prosecutors do. Well, everybody is entitled to defense. That's a right guaranteed in the Constitution. So anyway, all right, let's go on to the next one here. Matthew, tell us about this story out of ComoNews.com. This is Tacoma, Washington area. Gig Harbor man who shot man outside Safeway says he thought he was taking down shoplifter.
Yeah, this one. Okay, so this is a what not to do, guys, and gals, right? So what happens here is this guy goes into a Safeway, like a grocery store. Guy's name's Patrick. He's a 70-year-old guy. He's in there. Apparently, he's told that somebody might be shoplifting. He takes it into his own hands to stop a husband and wife who he believes are the shoplifters. He blocks them with his cart from leaving the store and tells them to show the clerk a receipt. He does not. Let me be clear. He doesn't work at the store. He's not a security guard. He's not a police officer. He's just an average Joe guy. And as you might suspect, the guy who he's accusing of being a shoplifter and demanding him show the receipt, they end up getting into a physical altercation. At that time, Patrick, the guy who's trying to detain these supposed shoplifters, they're in a fight. He believes that he's being punched to death. I think that's the wording they use in this in the story.
He quoted beating him to death.
Beating him to death. And so he shoots the guy. And turns out, as you know, the title kind of gave it away. These are not the shoplifters. And so he is arrested. And when I first read this, I was kind of, they gave him a high bail amount, the judge. And I was like, well, this is a 70-year-old guy. He made a mistake. Like, yes, it's wrong. And he did, and by the way, the guy died. The man who he shot died. It seems kind of, the judge is saying for public safety that he's giving this guy a high bail amount. And I'm like, so I kept reading. Turns out that this isn't the first time that this guy, Patrick, did something like this. So it says, court documents state that he was on the clock working for Pizza Hut when he confronted, then shot and injured a man he thought was trying to break into cars. So Patrick has some issues dealing with, his role in stopping crime and which led him into this getting involved in this scenario that clearly wasn't his fight and turned out to, he killed somebody who didn't deserve to be killed and wasn't actually the person who was shoplifting. This is one of those things where, right, like you could say, well, maybe he was beating him to death. Didn't he have the right to defend himself at that time? And that, I think that's going to be what he's going to claim, right? Like, yeah, I made a mistaken identity on this, but at the point where I shot him, I was in fear of my life, and that's not for us to debate. I guess, here we don't know all the facts, but what a tragic story nonetheless in all ways.
Oh yeah. This is, first of all, to be clear again, the man who was shot and killed was a complete innocent party. All right. He was stopped. He was accosted. He was accused of something that he had nothing to do with whatsoever. It stated that the individual here that shot him, Patrick Lathrop, had gotten a nod or a look or something. He was somehow tipped off by a cashier that there was a shoplifting that had taken place. Why they did that, I don't know, because it doesn't mention that he was working at this Safeway in a security role or anything like that. Just said that he's a frequent shopper of that particular Safeway. He probably lives near it, right? And but he was tipped off somehow to this shoplifter, but does not interpret the information correctly and misidentifies who that shoplifter is. Okay. Patrick Lathrop had zero business getting involved with this incident. Now, we could say, well, he's trying to do the right thing in stopping a shoplifter, and I guess he's able to do so technically under the law, provided he understands what he's doing. But he doesn't even understand what the situation is. He didn't witness it himself, as far as we know. He was not directly involved in this shoplifting. He simply was a third party that picked up, clued in on, hey, that cashier is indicating that somebody took something. And he stopped the wrong individual. That individual, imagine how you would respond. What the heck, dude? Why are you preventing me from leaving the store? That's essentially a detainment. Might be even considered a kidnapping. Okay. In certain jurisdictions, depending on how your statutes are written. Okay. Because you are unlawfully, by an individual, being detained, prevented from being able to leave. Okay. And so that individual's like, no way, no how. So basically the way I think this reads, Matthew, is that Mr. Lathrop here committed a crime unknowingly. Okay, but he did in fact commit a crime by unlawfully detaining an individual. And that individual had the right to try to escape an unlawful detainment. And so they used, by the sound of it, some physical force to try to escape along with their family. And in the course of that, this man drew and fired a gun. And unfortunately killed this innocent party.
Mm-hmm.
This is a messed up story. And as you mentioned, as you pointed out, and I picked up on that too, and I was like, well, that's interesting. It certainly paints a picture that this was not the first time that this gentleman had been involved in somebody else's business. Okay, and again, in the other incident, he was, I guess, employed by the Pizza Hut in some kind of security role, as far as it said in the article here. But the incident there was not even related to the Pizza Hut necessarily. It was that he noted or noticed someone in the parking lot apparently breaking into vehicles.
Yeah.
And went out and somehow in the course of that shot a man. So there's a pattern there that has emerged, and I think this gentleman is in some serious hot water and should be in hot water. Although innocent until proven guilty, but I think that he's probably going to see some time inside a jail somewhere. So this is why we've talked so many times before on the podcast about being careful getting involved in other people's business. Because if you're not a direct first party involved in that, it's much more difficult for you to have the full picture and the full context of what's taking place. And you might misinterpret what's happening. And pattern or not with this gentleman, it could have just been any dude that decided he was going to try to be a hero for the day, but misinterpreted the situation and got into a very similar situation. And all of a sudden, your life is now completely derailed. Because you misstepped somewhere, you mistook somebody, you misunderstood a situation, and now you're the one going to jail. So be super, super careful getting involved in other people's problems.
Mm-hmm.
This was not worth some, mediocre amount in terms of dollar, value of stuff being stolen from a store. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Fixit says that somebody, I don't know who Steve Leto is, but apparently he did a video on this morning. In many states, counts as an abduction. Yes, kidnapping. That's basically what I said, right?
Mhm.
Yep. So, yeah, it's a rough one. Let's go to, this is our, this would be we're back on track now with good stories, if you will. And to be clear, when we share so-called, justified save stories, we're not even necessarily saying or endorsing all the actions of these individuals involved and saying like, do this. But highlighting an incident that occurred and pointing out where and why it's likely justified. And of course, still talking about lessons that we can take away from that stuff. This is an incident that happened in California, in Liberty County. And the headline is, man kills neighbor who followed him into home during argument over truck. Excuse me, this was Texas. Did I say California?
Yeah.
Well, that's why, because I saw San Luis Obispo. This is on a California news site. That's what we get when various news organizations report stories from all over. Man kills neighbor who followed him into home during argument over truck, Texas cops say. Liberty County, Texas. So in this incident, we have apparently there's 3 houses on a property. It says 3 houses on the property in South Liberty County. There's 2 individuals that live in one of these homes, and there's a third individual that lives in another one of these homes on this property. This man that apparently, again, there's 2 that appear to be together, and then one that's a different party. He confronted one of these neighbors, accusing that neighbor of damaging his truck. And a second man that lived on that property gets involved, and he runs into the house for whatever reason. The individual here that's accusing them of damaging his truck, his name is Jorgensen, by the way, Christopher Jorgensen. He follows them into the house. He goes in there. Apparently, this man's a 54-year-old man. He ran into his bedroom, locked the door, and had a 12-gauge shotgun with him. Jorgensen apparently then at that point starts trying to break the man's bedroom door down. But the effort stopped after a short while, it says, quoting from the article. When the 54-year-old man behind the locked door in his bedroom with a shotgun, thought that Jorgensen had given up and left, he opened his bedroom door, but found Jorgensen still standing there at the door, and he then Jorgensen advanced on the man, it says. This man fired 2 shots at him, but was unclear, or it was unknown if he actually hit him with either of those 2 shots. Jorgensen ran outside into the yard. The shooter told law enforcement that he then went to the front door, where he saw Jorgensen coming at him again. That's when he fired a third and fatal shot. An autopsy has been ordered, it says, and the sheriff's office says no charges will be filed at this time, that this was a case of self-defense. I'd have to agree. Jorgensen has no right to go into that home. Jorgensen followed this man into his home. Jorgensen attempted to break down the man's door inside that home. This man, and then advanced upon him while inside there. This man fired shots in self-defense. I think it's pretty clear as day.
Yeah. Jorgensen seemed like he didn't have control over his emotions. I'm just going to throw that out there. And I think that we need to use that as a lesson here, right? Like, be in control of your emotions. He didn't have to die, even though he made multiple mistakes along the way. Like, even after he followed the guy into his house, he could have been shot right there, but based off of what he was doing, but he wasn't, because the guy who defended himself showed some restraint. And then he even left, and it was like he just continued to persist. And I think we have to have our emotions in check and be able to control those things, because when we're not, it's not a good thing. And unfortunately, this ended up, somebody died over damage to a truck. That's
Yeah.
You know, it's sad. It's pointless. And who knows if this guy Jorgensen had a family or kids or whatever, but certainly not the way you want to have your day unfold.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Well, there you go. Like I said, I think it's a pretty clear-cut case. Matthew, tell us about this one out of Norristown, Pennsylvania. Man was, and this, by the way, is reported on the Philadelphia Inquirer, inquirer.com. Man who was being robbed by two Norristown teens killed them in self-defense, prosecutors said.
Yeah, so this is another, case where a couple teenagers are committing armed robberies. They try to arm this one guy. This is around 8 p.m. He's walking to his car. So again, those transitional spaces. He's leaving his home, walking to his vehicle. Two 17-year-olds approach him. It says a fight broke out after one of the two 17-year-old males pulled a gun on the man. During the scuffle, the man shot both teens. And so it says the man called police. He attempted to give medical aid to the teens. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. Officers found an illegal ghost gun. So this is one of those things where, I think we always talk about, hey, consider if somebody has a drawn gun on you, even if you have a gun on you, your own firearm, consider the times and the opportunities to be able to draw that, because somebody who has a gun on you, it's much easier and quicker to pull the trigger than go through your draw process, even with a sub-second draw or whatever. Right. But so sometimes we talk about, compliance sometimes is a tactic and can be used. And sometimes it certainly is not the right way to go. And in this case, he ended up fighting two guys, one of which had a firearm, and was able to overpower them. And I couldn't really tell if he got the gun from them and used it against them, or if he had his own. I'm sorry. He did. He had a gun that it says he was licensed to carry. I was crossing over two stories. He was actually carrying a firearm. So he didn't wrestle the gun out of their hand and use it against him. He had his own firearm, but he had to take care of that initial threat, right? The guy with the gun, he had to handle that threat, that firearm first. And so we don't know the particulars of how this happened and everything, but it's one of those things where when it's go time, what are the options? What are the, it's, are you going to get shot or, so he made the call, and, unfortunately these two kids died, but it's, you live by the sword, you die by the swords type thing, right? Like these guys are up there committing violence with, armed robberies and things like that. And these kinds of things happen when you play those games.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I think you covered that very well. We're seeing this as being more and more a thing. I don't think there's anything here that's new. I just think it's more of maybe the prevalence of how often, especially as we encounter these types of stories, justified save stories, it seems more common than it used to be that the criminal actors are under the age of 18, are not adults. I was actually just reading an article last night, local here to Denver, the Denver, Colorado area, that was talking about, this teenage crime, and how it seems that more and more there's teens that are being caught with guns, and sort of like was asking the question. It was not a bad article at all. I thought just pure analysis of, where are these teens getting these guns? How are they getting their guns? I actually went into a little bit about how they're using social media to communicate with each other and share. Sometimes the guns are just being shared, like, hey man, like I need to borrow your gun, and borrowing it temporarily to go, shoot people or use them in the commission of a crime. and then they'll like give them back. And they're basically like gun handlers, if you will, that are sort of facilitating that. Kind of interesting stuff. I mean, not good stuff, but just an insight into the sometimes fairly organized and sometimes just loosely ways that criminal teenagers are conducting themselves in this regard. So I have to remind myself of that. Sometimes I see young teens in the neighborhood or in the area, and it's like, there's a tendency, this bias that I think exists of, well, that's just a kid, but you still have to watch those kids closely too. They can be every bit as dangerous as a full-grown man, and you just don't realize it.
Yeah.
As unfortunate as that is. KIRO7.com out of San Antonio, Texas reports woman home with 3 children shoots and kills intruder. This story goes that this woman was home with her 3 children. She heard someone trying to break into her home through a laundry room at the back of the house. She grabbed her gun and fired, hitting the man twice in the chest as he tried to break into the main portion of the home. This man was not identified, but he died on his way to the hospital. And it says specifically in this article that this woman is not facing charges because of Texas castle doctrine, which allows the use of force against someone forcefully and unlawfully entering a home, place of business, or vehicle. It's really important you understand your specific state statutes with respect to the use of deadly force, and based on specific circumstances, such as taking place inside a dwelling or inside a home, taking place around that home, on your property, in and around your vehicle, and so on and so forth. Most states are more or less aligned in regards. Texas is a little bit more loose, I would say. That's the only way I can think to describe it right now, with respect to use of deadly force in these types of situations. And so it's really important you understand your law and stay within the bounds of that law. This is a clear-cut case of self-defense. I give this woman all the kudos and props and I guess congratulations. Again, it always feels a little bit weird to say that, like congrats, but congrats to you for refusing to be a victim and for standing up for you and the lives of your 3 children. I'm proud of you. So well done.
Yeah. And I think when you say congratulations or whatever, or good job, yeah, people are going to jump and say, oh, you're happy that people are getting, no, but like good job in the way you handled this situation, right? Like she didn't crank off warning shots. She didn't shoot, 17 rounds through her walls and hit all her neighbors. Like good job in being prepared, being trained enough to handle the firearm and to recognize somebody's trying to break in and not just to, fall down in the fetal position, but to protect your family. And good job in using, appropriate force and those things. It's like, those are the things that are commendable, right? Like in those situations, she did a great job and made those right calls. And that's all we're trying to do by looking at these stories, is get more, I guess, in your playbook or more in your Rolodex in your brain that says, how can I respond to a host of different problems, and what are some things that I want to avoid, pitfalls that people get sucked into by, maybe going outside and confronting people. Maybe I can avoid those things. And that's really, why I like these episodes, is because we're not trying to Monday morning quarterback or hey, I could have done this, or, this person's an idiot. Like, no, that's not the point. The point is how can we learn from these and so we can perform better. And I think that's the benefit of doing this the way we do it. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, man.
Well, folks, that brings us to a conclusion of these Justified Save stories that we had for you here today. I hope that you got something from this. And what that something is, I hope, is at the very least that it provides some food for thought, that you can kind of see how dangerous situations played out in the lives of others and how they made certain decisions, both good and bad, and how that may inform your own decision making in your own preparation, in your own training, your own mindset, all of that. This is sort of like, I think it was John Correa actually saw on social media recently referring to it kind of in this manner as sort of like a, as far as like some people refer to this as like war gaming, like where you're kind of, imagining certain scenarios and like what you do and how you'd respond and so on and so forth. And yeah, I think he kind of referred to it as sort of like a mental dry fire of sorts with respect to deadly force encounters. And I was like, yeah, that's basically what it is. So anyway, we hope you found value in the information and in these stories we've shared here today. Before we let you go, we do need to announce our weekly podcast giveaway winner. This week, we're giving away a Ready Up Gear 2-pack of 16 340 rechargeable batteries. These are a great little, in fact, here it is. Yep. Looks just like this for those of you that are on Facebook or YouTube with us here today. This is the Ready Up Gear 16 340 battery. It's a 2-pack that this lucky person will win. They have a built-in micro USB recharging port or charging port, which is super convenient because you don't have to have an actual charger for these. You just need a basic micro USB cable, which most of us have somewhere in our homes, and a little, thing you plug into the wall for that. Plug it into that port, bam, charge up your batteries. So these are awesome. I think the 2-pack retails for $20 ish. Nice little gift here for our lucky podcast giveaway winner. Who is our winner of these Ready Up Gear 16 340 batteries?
The winner is Richard. Last name starts with an R. Richard R.
Awesome. Congratulations, Richard. I should have mentioned that, in case you don't know what a 16 340 battery is for, they do a really great job of replacing your more common, here's an analog for that, CR123A batteries. So here's a Surefire CR123A, and you'll see with the 16 340, they're basically the same size. There you go. So these little guys tend to be kind of spendy for, in terms of batteries, as far as batteries go, and buy a couple of these and get hundreds of recharged uses out of them and save yourself some money. Congratulations, Richard, for getting a 2-pack. They'll come in a little package like this here. Also, next week, we're giving away a SWAT T tourniquet to one lucky winner. Hope that you will consider signing up for our weekly giveaway at concealedcarry.com/podcast prize. That is something you need to do every week if you want to participate in and have a chance each week to win a weekly prize. And one final shout out to our sponsors of today's episode, which were CCW Safe at ccwsafe.com. Don't forget to use the discount code mentioned in the beginning of the episode. And also the 2022 Guardian Conference in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. 3 days world-class training for like-minded folk like you and me and Matthew and many of you listening to this podcast. Hope to see you there. We're going to have a great time. Last year was a blast. I know that travel is kind of maybe getting a little bit more difficult, a little bit more expensive. Fuel prices are up. I do want to say we still have, we have a block of rooms where we have a conference discount, if you will, available to conference attendees for hotels that are like 15 minutes away from the range. That's where our whole team is staying. Very, very reasonably priced. You can also stay on site. You can stay in a tent. You can bring an RV or whatever. You can stay right there on site. If you're looking for ways to save some money, save some dough, we hope to see you there. I promise you it'll be well worth it and well worth your time. And again, we thank EDC Belt Company, edcbeltco.com. And to sign up for the conference or to learn more about it, go to guardianconference.com. So with that, we're going to let you guys go. Thanks for being here with us for another episode of the Concealed Carry Podcast. We'll be back, I think, episode 10 of season 6. This was episode 9. I think it's unfortunately going to have to get recorded tomorrow. because I realized I have a conflict here in a little bit. So we'll look forward to probably seeing you guys back here tomorrow. Those of you who'd like to join us live. Until next time, a reminder to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.